All right, hello. We are here with Ricky Williams and Jenna Lowe, who he's now going to eat alive, apparently. Jenna's pretty tough, though. She's got a Grand Cross, so you can try, but
Oh, perfect.
Mhm.
Actually, the way I think about it, a grand cross would invite that kind of interaction, and whether they enjoy it or not, right? That's kind of a personal preference. But the interactions will come. A grand cross can make sure that will happen.
That's so true. And if they don't come, I invent them for myself.
Perfect.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That,
Do you
that
want?
that's them. That's them coming too, but they're coming this way instead of this way.
Yep. It finds a way.
Yeah.
Do you want Jenna's info?
Of course.
Ricky,
How do I
like,
do it? Just say it.
you can put it in the chat if you want.
Or, yeah, whatever's clever.
So today we're going to talk about Mars and Sagittarius and the transit of Mars and Sagittarius, and what it means, and like perhaps what it means through different houses if we have time for that. So, for everyone watching, Mars is about 5 Sagittarius right now. It's going to be in Sagittarius for how long? A few months. I'm looking for my ephemeris.
It's going to go back into Scorpio for a bit too. Oh, sorry. No, it's not. I'm thinking Mercury. Ignore me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm getting my ephemeris out.
Oh, good.
Okay, let's see here. So Mars is going to be in Sagittarius for.
Worcester.
Woo!
Wait, did you get her?
Yes, I sure did.
Yes, I was born in the armpit of Massachusetts.
I love Worcester.
Wow.
Okay, so Mars is going to be in Sagittarius. It went in there November 5th, and it's going to be in there until December 15th of 2025. So for another month, we're going to have Mars in Sagittarius. And so what's it mean? What can people expect? That kind of thing. All right. Well, does anyone have any comments on what it means to have Mars in Sagittarius?
I don't mind starting. I primarily am an evolutionary astrologer. So I like to look at it from like a more positive lens than some other traditions, where it's like, what are the opportunities I'm being presented with in order to develop and grow? So when we're talking about Mars energy, it's about developing courage. And when we're talking about Sagittarius, we're looking at themes that can have to do with beliefs or grand experiences, new experiences, anything that can expand us. And Mercury. So, I had Mercury on my mind. Mars, we're talking about courage. So what experiences are going to either present themselves or demand us to show up in a way that we might feel a lot of fear, but we need to channel some courage in order to step up to that opportunity.
All right. Courage. And courage, I feel like, is very Mars and Sagittarius. So it does seem, Mars is at home in the fire signs. They would call that in essential dignities. They call that like the triplicity dignity is like it's in the element of itself. So like Mars is a fiery planet, and then being in a fire sign, it's going to be very strong. Even though it's not Mars in Aries, which is the strongest, Mars in Sag is still pretty strong.
Okay, so I'd love a inspirational personal example
of Mars and Sagittarius.
No, I mean Mars and Sagittarius, but more specifically Mars, because like what beautiful. By the way, I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and it's like professor. That's an A++. That's wonderful, right? And I think what takes it to the next level, and not everyone has access to this, but someone who's an Aries rising, with Mars exalted in the 10th house, right, will have ample lived experiences to bring to bear a conversation about Mars.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you guys are both of the Stephen Forrest school, by the way. You both have learned from Stephen Forrest, so
yeah.
I can give an example that's also ties in Stephen Forrest. I was on vacation with Stephen, not really. We were in Greece earlier this year for a conference, and there was Palamedes Castle was one of the places we went, and you had to hike up the steps in order to get there. And we knew it was going to be closed. It was more about the journey. So we hiked up these steps, and all the other people I was with, who generally their energies were very soft and very easy, they had no problem with this hike. And I'm a super fiery person. I was terrified, and I was not expecting to be terrified. But I think I recognized that this was an opportunity for me proving myself to myself that it would be okay. I would be okay. I'd be able to make this journey. And when I realized, I was like, you know what, my Mars, so doing courageous things, doing the thing, taking the action, even in the face of fear, being in Capricorn in the 10th house, like I was being a goat climbing up these steps, even though I was terrified and moving through that.
Yeah. Here's something that I find kind of mind-blowing, a little fascinating, okay, is in this conversation is, again, I think we've covered Mars and Sagittarius, I think, really well, but to bring it home is in each of our charts, Sagittarius is going to be in a certain house, sometimes, more than one, often more than one. And so that Mars is going to be going through a certain area of our life, and it's going to be making certain aspects to certain planets. One of my favorite pieces of, I'll call it literature. One of my favorite pieces of literature is in the remediation book. It's thinking about when a planet is at a certain degree, all the aspects it's making to all the other points, right? That's so awesome, Andy. I love that section. Love it. Right? And so, some of us, right, and Sagittarius is a mutable sign. Some of us have, the moon, right, in a mutable sign, right? And for you, the moon opposing Uranus, okay? So even on a person, it's funny, I asked for a personal example, and, in this time that Mars is moving through Sagittarius, is going to conjunct the Uranus and oppose the moon, okay? And the story you told as a personal example was you in a foreign country studying astrology, which is that opposition. Wow,
Yeah, that is so true.
And it's as if that experience was preparing you for what's coming up in the next month or so as the transiting Mars comes and activates the Uranus-Moon opposition.
Okay, well, so viewers can't see Jenna's chart, which we might need to figure out how to screen share on this format. But I do have an example of a Sun-Mars conjunction in Sagittarius. I do know a person who has that signature in their chart. Sometimes if we look at a person who's inhabiting like Mars and Sagittarius, what does that life look like? So she has a Pisces moon, so she's a musician, and she's a Sun Mars Sag drummer. She's started playing drums. She's 7. Her name's Terica Kleinknecht, and she's a Portland rock star. She's an insane rock and roll metal drummer, and like she's just a beast, just like like I've seen her get. This was in her earlier days when she drank alcohol. She like drank and like carried a chair out of the mall. Like she's covered in tattoos. She's like a little tiny thing. Her astro twin is actually a professional boxer. So Mars and Sag, is kind of it is very martial. Like her drumming style is extremely hard hitting and like, so I think it is a powerful warrior, but it is like what Jen is saying. It's like a warrior of freedom. Like she's a rock and roll drummer. She's a rocker. That's Mars and Sag. It's like, like Sag is like the thrasher of the zodiac,
Yeah. So, one way that I think to apply this to real life is, thinking about Mars and Sagittarius and thinking about people we know that have that placement strong. Mm-hmm. That I often say one way to think of synastry or one way to think of transits is someone comes to visit. And I've noticed that very often if, example, I had a Saturn opposing my ascendant, and out of the blue, 2 friends showed up at the door, and both of them the strongest planet was Saturn. So, thinking that in Mars and Sagittarius, if you think of your favorite Mars and Sagittarius or Mars-y type Sagittarian people, and you spend some time with them, it's a positive way to utilize the energy. And it's interesting because especially if they are a Mars and Sagittarius person, all right, they'll be going through a Mars return,
Oh, right now, it's true. It's true. Oh, my friend she's got it at like 7 degrees, so she's in her Mars return right now. I'm gonna have to text her and see what's up right there.
Yeah, but as a personal example, I have the sun at 0 degrees Gemini, and so as soon as Mars entered Sagittarius, it activated my sun, which was receiving an opposition from Uranus.
Oh, we saw that last week, by the way. So if you want to see Ricky really on that transit, you can watch last week's live.
Exactly. Right, exactly. I went for it, right? I went for it. Okay?
Really just as entertaining.
I love how you fight with Debbie. She's just definitely the nicest person in our studio, and you're just like,
she got all you guys fooled. But I think to me, like that's the energy of Mars and Sagittarius is go for it.
Okay,
damn
nice.
the torpedoes, go for it, and not it's not for everyone. Okay, it's not for everyone, and two things, and there is one area in our lives that if we were willing, more than normal to just go for it, right? Right, there's a reward on the other side. Right? And the other thing, especially if you have powerful planets in mutable signs, right, the universe is going to give you a situation where it's go for it or get run over, right, in some form or fashion. And so we can talk about courage, and it's wonderful to talk about it and to prepare yourself for it, right? But if it's just the thought, when the situation comes, okay, hopefully you can take the conversation or the ideas about courage and apply them and meet the moment. Right? And so that's more of a passive way, to me, an aggressive way of just thinking about taking survey of your life. And as a hint, you can say, where is Mars, right? What house is Mars moving through and what planets are aspecting, right? And related to those houses, right? What area of my life could I go for it a little bit more? And know that in this time you got Mars's support.
It's interesting with Sag too, because we have that lower archetype of like the illusion of being really clear about something and almost being buoyant within our presumed clarity. So it could be almost the courageous action to revisit what we feel clear on. Like, what actions am I taking that aren't actually serving me, that I'm kind of just in this repetitive pattern without really recognizing that I've outgrown it?
Okay, that's I get what you're saying, but to me that doesn't feel like Mars. And you would have to invert it inwardly. It's more like take your shot, right? And this is the reality of Mars, okay? This is the reality of fire, right? Take your shot and see what happens. So if you think you're clear, right, take your shot, right? And you'll get evidence whether you were clear or not, and you're in a better place to make an adjustment. There's so many places where we believe something, but we're never willing to act on that belief and take our shot, so we don't ever really get to know if we're clear.
Well, it's the right use of force too. So it's like, we might think like, oh, I definitely need to go at this 150%. And then when we trick ourselves or just skip over evaluating it and think like, yeah, I'm pretty clear that this is how much force I have to use. But I think what's great about Sagittarius is it gives us the opportunity to attempt again to reconnect dots and be like, well, wait a minute, I actually don't need to apply this much force.
Well, but I think the connecting the dots comes from applying the force and seeing that it didn't work out. It's not a theoretical thing with fire, right? It's like you don't know until you take your shot.
How fair? I'm thinking of the clean taking of a shot. Like obviously someone's shooting a basketball in my mind right now. Okay, so how is Mars and Sag different than Mars and Scorpio?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing is that Scorpio is a feminine sign. So the Mars energy is going inwards, and now it's coming out. And so I think what you're talking about of the inner reflection, that's Mars and Scorpio. And if you do the inner reflection, when you take your shot, you're going to be more clear, because Scorpio is about getting the shit that makes you not clear out of the way. At least that's the opportunity, the courage to face those things. And if someone's had the courage to face those things, right, when they take a shot, it's going to be more accurate. The ones who didn't have the courage to face those things, right, there's an opportunity to clean it up, but those are going to be the shots that are a little bit off. And to me, the connecting the dots, that's where it comes from. It's not theoretical dots. This is what I thought was right. This is what I was clear about. I took my shot and I missed. So I must be wrong, and now I need to make an adjustment, and we have the energy to make the adjustment and shoot again and shoot again. And I do think of Sagittarius, I do think of golf, and I do think of basketball. You know, Sagittarius is the sign of philosophy. And I often tell the story about Sagittarius. The Sagittarius is walking through the forest and they see a target, you know, and they start to think, what is that? And then they see a bow and an arrow, right? A quiver of arrows, okay? And they're like, I got some free time. Let me take a shot, right? They can't pass it up, okay? So they pick it up and they take a shot and it soars over the target, you know, right? And a Capricorn would say, I'm wasting my time and take off. Not the Sag, okay? They're like, if I just would have aimed a little bit lower, okay, I would have hit it, right? And they got to take the shot. And they aim a little bit lower, and it goes underneath. And then they're like, I know, right? If I just go right in the middle, I'm going to hit it, right? And 15 minutes later, they're hitting the bullseye, okay? And it's a philosophy, right? Someone says, how did you do that? They're going to share their philosophy. If I pull it back this far and I aim at this angle and I let it go, I have faith and confidence that it's going to hit the mark, right? Clarity.
So Jenna, in your mind, when you hear the term take a shot, like what comes to your mind as far as Mars and Sag and taking a shot? What's that even mean?
Well, with Mars in general, but it is more Aries, I think of that whole like ready, go, set, like you're almost acting ahead of time. And I like the idea of kind of testing out, oh, well, let me try to swing it like this. Let me try to swing it like that. I'm trying to integrate when does recognizing and honing your skill turn into the Capricorn mastery? Like where does that happen in that process?
Well, I think it's like what I was just saying. If you keep shooting and making adjustments, right? That's the definition of mastery, right? That it takes time, but you can't get there if you're not willing to take your shot, right? That's why it's interesting. The idea of like the senators, the Senex in Rome, in Rome, they were a culture of war. So in order to be a senator, you have to survive all those wars, right? So it's like you've earned it, right? You've been through things. Right, but if people get old, but they never take their shot, they don't really have any wisdom.
So, I mean, would you say taking your shot is like trying the thing that you want to do? Is Mars and Sagittarius? It's like, you know, with Mars and Scorpio, we like ruminated on, you know, what's important to us, and we kind of more did some rumination. And then now that Mars is in Sag, it's like go for it, whatever it is.
I think Sag is a religious sign, so I think it's go for it in terms of what you believe in. Here's a simple example, okay? Someone says, right, love conquers all, love conquers all, love conquers all, right? That's it, and they have hearts and everything, right? That's their belief system, right? And then they get into a big fight with their partner, right? Okay, right? To have faith and take a shot, even though I feel so hurt, you know, and that this is going to happen again, I still have to keep my heart open and love. That takes courage, right? That's taking your shot because you don't know, right? The old pattern is, this is going to happen over and over again. So it's about getting clear about what you believe in, and life is going to test you to have courage to take action in the direction of what you say you believe in.
Kimber's here in the chat. Kimber, you should type to us what you think it means to take a shot. Okay, Jenna, go ahead.
I was just thinking, this came up on my own social media stuff earlier. Carl Jung talking about empaths and narcissists and the deluded thinking that can come around, like, oh, if I just love them in the right way, I can solve all of this. So where does love conquers all actually become an illusion? Like we think that's really, but it's at the end of the day, we don't have ultimate control. Not to be
okay. But this is my point, right? If you just say it, but you don't actually take action on it, you don't get to have that awareness. You just stay in a delusion of this idea that love conquers all, but you don't practice it. And the idea of practicing it is living, because what the person is trying to say is, I want to live a life where I lead with love. Right? Whether it conquers all or not, right? They can go to sleep at night because they know they make choices in alignment with their belief system. Right, and we all have the right, and especially Uranus in the 9th house in Aquarius, right, to believe whatever the hell we want to believe. But beliefs don't work if we don't take actions to verify and validate them.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more technical. When doing predictions, like I always go technical because it's like, how do we predict around astrology? When of course, you can look at past times when Mars is in Sagittarius and say in the past it's done this and that, but the other planets were not at the same degree. So if we go technically, like what can we tell about humans in this time period. Okay, what we know, here's our dermatome map, which I'm sure Ricky knows what dermatomes are, being a massage therapist, is like, okay, here's our dermatome map, and Mars in Sagittarius is going to heat up the leg. It's going to heat up the thigh and all the muscles of the leg. And then the horse's tail, which is that cluster of nerves that comes out and goes down the legs, is going to be heated up with Mars in Sagittarius. And the whole nervous system at large is going to be heated up because, you know, the nervous system kind of lives in there. So like our nervous systems are going to be a little bit more, you know, fiery, and also our legs, and like, you know, you might have to like get up and go kind of thing, you know, but like, so how does this affect things?
Well, again, the idea of get up and go, right? So part of Sagittarius is, you know, long journeys, you know, going to foreign lands. And I had a mentor, and he said, you know, humans in our history, whenever we got stuck and things weren't working, you know, we just got up and we moved. You know, we moved to better places, to better. And that act of the hips in the area ruled by Sagittarius, right? It's time to take action. It's time to move. And it's not just right. It's not arms action like this. It's this part of the body, most powerful part of the body, taking action. Right.
That's a nice correction too for like any over expression of Scorpio. So like say someone used this Mars Scorpio transit that we just went through to really do a lot of psychoanalytical digging. And now it's like, okay, well, how can I release some of this? How can I work through it? And it just reminds me of the somatic release, how we can get in touch with these feelings that almost might feel foreign, especially if we've suppress them for so long that they're living literally in a lot of times women especially hold a lot of trauma in their hips. So now it's like, well, now's our opportunity to actually work that out.
Yeah, and the ancients would say that Jupiter's at home in Sag and Pisces because those are the buoyant parts of the leg. And like they're the parts of the leg that push us up, whereas the Saturn parts of the leg pull us down. Like you know, so it's like, so I think, you know, we could say that Mars in Sag is a very buoyant energy, right? Of just like, it's like get up and go, like enough sitting around, you know. Like I always think of like postal carriers as like having Mars and Sag because they walk around all day for a living, and I'm like, that is so like get up and go, you know, as far as the job goes. But like, I mean, so we should have people look at what's in their natal chart in Sagittarius because Mars is going to trample over your Sagittarius planet. So it's like,
I would say all mutable. I'd say planets in mutable signs because the nature of the hard aspects, they tend to be, we tend to feel them.
It's true. So if you have anything in Sag, Gemini, Pisces, or Virgo, this Mars is going to ignite that square. So Ricky's making a good point there of like, if you have any mutable planets, you know, watch this Mars because it will fire up those planets. So what can we say?
Especially, I will say, especially if you have squares and especially if you have a Grand Cross immutable.
Dude, I am waiting. I want to see Jenna. I want to go visit Jenna on that transit and see what happens.
Yeah, honestly, I want Jenna to write an essay about it, about Mars, gosh. About right, because it's interesting. I'm calling this out. Astrologers, we talk about things before they happen, but it's like rarely do we go. And in football, we did this all the time. You play a game or you go to practice. As soon as the game or practice is over, you're going into the film room and you're watching the film to see how did you do. And I think astrologers would be benefited if they did that. We make predictions. Let's go back and see where were we on and where were we off and what did we miss. I think that's how we learn to become more accurate. But we don't tend to look back and see. And just sorry, I'm gonna just trip on one more thing. I can't help it. Is solar return charts. You know, that's the thing I harp on. I'm like, you make this statement about a solar return chart, but one of the things you have is every year of your life. So you can go back and do the solar return chart for every year of your life and test yourself. You know, look at it and say, and randomly pick a year, don't tell yourself which year, and make a prediction of what you would say, and then see if it matches to what actually happened in that year.
I'm horrified by solar return charts, man. I would never cast a solar return.
Why?
Because it's a teleologist, so we're looking at the development theory of the natal chart. The solar return, it creates a new natal chart essentially, and I don't do any new natalization, like no relocation chart. Like that's just me though. I'm like a teleological purist of like we are here to manifest and grow this natal thing, and like the solar return just takes us way off course. Like if you're busy manifesting your natal, and then all of a sudden you have a whole new chart, like no, thank you, ma'am. Not going to do it.
What about
Yeah.
progressions?
Progressions?
Yeah.
Well, I think a progression, it adheres to the natal, so I would maybe look at those. Yeah, we're gonna have somebody coming on. Bonnie Gillespie's coming back on the Ricky Show, and she wants to talk about the layering effect of like many chart wheels, and I'm like, oh, please do. That is a whole thing, kind of thing. So, yeah, Ricky, I filled this up with guests again because like getting you to get guests was like it's killing me. It's killing me.
Yeah, whatever. whatever. I was gonna. Yeah, I was gonna clarify something. I don't. I want to clarify. I don't use solar return charts because to me, if you take transits and progressions for the next year in a solar return chart, they don't even compare. If you're gonna say I'm gonna take the transits and progressions and then I'm gonna look at the solar return chart and see where there's overlap, I think that that might be useful. But don't lean into a solar return chart and ignore the transits and progressions. Huge mistake.
Okay, yeah. Well, and I do definitely look at the transits around a birthday, like this solar return of like what is going on right now. But I don't freeze in time this one moment. Like, yeah, hi Kazri, by the way. Okay, let's talk about this for people who have planets in mutables and in Sag. What might we be looking for with Mars hitting those planets? What is the,
It depends on the person's relationship with Mars. Right? If they like Mars and there's a channel in their life, they might not even recognize it, right? They just might be like, I worked out harder today than I normally do. It would be subtle. But if Mars doesn't have a place in their life, it's gonna make one.
Interesting. So Kimber's saying that Mars is moving through her second house, and since she's been in Sag, she's been taking shots by purchasing stuff and experiences that she's been thinking about for a while. So like today, she just committed to 2 Astro conferences. So that I like that as a really good example, Kimber, of like you have this stuff ruminating, and Mars gives you the bravery to go ahead with the thing, and I'm trying to use the G-rated thing. I don't want to say blow my wad or whatever.
But the dark side of Sag though is one of the dark sides of Sag is hype. Hype. That's why it's associated to the things that we actually believe in. Right?
Yeah.
And I thought about this a lot. And Jupiter's generosity, and the benefactor. Right. The dark side of that is you blow the money and there's nothing in return. Right. The positive side is you invest in things that you believe in, right? And so it's an extension of yourself. It's like your wealth or your generosity is an extension of yourself, and you cherish and blessing something and seeing it grow, right? And I think for our own inner belief system, right, it's taking action towards something that you truly believe in is a door to blessings right now, And so someone is like, I've been really wanting to do astrology, and it's so important to me. And there's different, but if I pay for this, I'm not gonna have the money for this. What do I do? Right? Take your shot. Right? That's what. And if Mars is right, in a couple of months when Mars is moving to Capricorn, right? You gotta use it to keep it in the pocket. Right?
Yeah, I think that's really good to look at the shadow side of Sagittarius, because I think Mars can give us the bravery to do things, but it can also make us kind of like impulsive, right? So it's like the whole like overly optimistic side of Sagittarius of just like you shot your shot either at the wrong thing or in a way that was like you blew your wad essentially, like
hype. Yeah, that's what I mean by hype, right? It's what you thought you believed in or what everyone believes in. It's not something that's truly you believe in. And sometimes especially if you're in environments where you believe something different than other people, right? We can see one expression of how Mars might have to show up at this time.
Yeah, interesting. Jenna, what do you think about Mars going over people's planets?
I think that it can definitely, you know, if somebody overcompensates or is already very martial and feels emboldened under that transit to be extra martial, I think that it can be a little bit of a war zone picking up the pieces. But I also think sometimes for the people, sometimes I run into people who engage in astrology and they're like, oh, Mars is coming, and they almost want to run and hide. And it's like, well, if you are more of a run and hide type person, maybe Mars is actually empowering you to feel uncomfortable enough to actually do something and feel into what it feels like to stand up and be the warrior, be the hunter, be the person who's calling the shots. Because with Mars, the energy is going to find a way to express itself. So either you're going to take it and harness it and be that energy, or it's going to come in a way that you're not necessarily in control of.
I need to hear stories. All right.
Okay, I got
Right?
some. I got some.
Wait, no, wait. Someone again, an Aries. If you're gonna say that, and you have Aries rising and Mars in the 10th, I need a story.
Yeah, Mars is very important in my chart. My Mars is also wildly out of bounds and doesn't have any major aspects to planet, so it's a little bit chaotic at times. But when I start to feel the energy within me, and it's almost like the Mars takes over. For example, my son had a very bad interaction at like a parent homeschool event where another parent yelled at him. And I was brand new there, and my son was like 7 at this point. And I was like, what should I even do? And I was so timid. Like, I'm an Aries rising, and we got a rep of being like very forward, but sometimes it's about learning how to be very forward. So I went up to this lady who had a bunch of crystals on. So I was like, she'll have good advice. And I was like, what should I do about this situation? Like, my son wants to leave. My daughter's crying from watching this. And she's like, maybe you should just let it settle down and, you know, talk to her later. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And then my whole body just turned and faced this woman, and I beelined it for her. And it just came out of me. I was like, I was just taken over by this Mars energy to actually say what I needed to say. And it's funny to think of it as like my North Node is in the first house in Aries, the idea of like enlightened selfishness. Like, yeah, it was a little uncomfortable for everyone there, but it needed to be said and it needed to be addressed. So
Yeah, interesting.
So good.
Okay, I got some keywords for Sagittarius, both negative and positive. So I thought we could look at some of these. Okay, so the weaknesses of Sag are boisterous, overconfident, rash, changeable, blunt, brusque, aggressive, defiant, uncompromising, love him and leave him. You know, so Mars going through here, we could see some overconfidence, like we're saying. Being overly boisterous, you know, with Mars there. It's like people are like, it'd be like you're sitting in class, you're having a laughing attack, you're like all boisterous and like exuberant kind of thing. Being rash or blunt, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like maybe with Mars, one of your Mercury and Sag, you might just say some shit, you know what I mean? You know, kind of thing. All right, so what do you guys think about these keywords?
Well,
Rash.
I mean, again, I'm not going to trip yet. So I think the first thing,
Dude, I'm gonna make you trip so hard, just generally. I haven't even started messing with Ricky.
Yeah, so I like this, especially for as Mars is going over natal planets that are in Sagittarius, because those planets, right, are imbued with Sagittarius energy. And as Mars come, right, they're going to tend to be more self-righteous, and sometimes we're conscious of it. And I think if we are conscious of it, that's when we might be a little bit too self-righteous if it's not aimed in the right direction. If it's aimed in the right direction, like, great, we're going to be fine. And if we're unconscious of it, I think, especially Mars, when we're unconscious of Mars, it's difficult because, you know, or we project it onto someone else. You know, we really do have opinions, but our sibling or our best friend or our spouse is the one that shares them. And when Mars activates it, our opinions differ. Ooh, right? What do we do? Right? What do we do? So the Mars by conjunction activating is bringing to the surface whatever natal themes, right? House rulership, etc. Connected to the natal planet that's in Sagittarius. So, right, one of the things is in a Mars time, you want to go meet the enemy in the battlefield. And so be aware of your Sagittarian planets and think of, right, if they had free reign to express themselves, what are they passionate about? right? And try to think of areas in your life where you have opportunities to express that passion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we could say someone who's being critical could be like Kimber was being rash signing up for 2 conferences because Mars is going through her second house, like was being rash spending so much money. Or we could look
But
at it.
that's when you need to be brash. If someone says that, right, you say "fuck off." Right? That's seriously. That's
That's true, man. I'm pro Mars. I'm like pro bravery. You know what I mean?
Yes. You have to be now, right? So you right because right, it's a season, right? This is. I think sometimes we lose sight of the signs are giving us information about seasons. Seasons.
Yeah.
So if we want to make a strong response to Mars, right, we have to understand that it's a Mars and Sagittarius season, right? What crops can we plant? What crops can we harvest in this season? How do we take advantage of these opportunities?
Everything turn. There is okay. So Jenna, what do you think about the shadow side of Mars and Sagittarius? Like, what are the darknesses it brings?
I think I'm going to just talk from personal experience because I think that it can lead to some aha moments that end up with beating yourself up for either not seeing it sooner or not taking enough action or still not knowing the next step to take. Like, to really lean into Mars and Sagittarius is to have trust in Mars, but also having the faith and the belief of Sagittarius. Like, that's a lot of happenstance, like all at once. Like, I don't know, that feels very risky to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
what comes to my mind with the shadow is baby mamas and baby daddies.
Just going, yeah, like that's totally shooting your wad and like shooting your shot when you're like, oh, I don't have any money and all this stuff, and you're like, oh, we should have a kid. That's a great idea. Well, okay, let me think if I can think of shadow sides. I think of being impulsive with Mars and Sagittarius. I really do. Like, like if it goes over something and you just impulsively come or impulsively go from a situation that you were in, I think being like running away is very, heat down the legs. It's just like I got to get up and walk out of here. It's like walking away from something that you probably love, but you're just running away essentially.
Like, and, I also notice that impulsively coming leads to baby daddies and baby mamas.
dude.
Hey, you said it. I'm just pointing.
Dude, I just make like 12 egg omelets and just have like tons of babies at the same time.
Well, I mean, I'm laughing, but for certain people, right? Certain charts where it activates certain areas of the chart, it's real, right? Taking your shot, right? Especially for men. Men have this thing of conquest, and especially if they buy into the belief system, right? That I'm a bigger man and the more women I can conquer. If that's a belief system, and you got planets in Sag, right, that's going to be activated.
That is so true. Unwanted pregnancy, or not unwanted, but just like what do you call it? Like where it's not really. It's kind of like impulsive impregnation. Like where you're just like, yeah, we should have a baby. We're 12. It's fine. Whatever it is. Yeah, no, I think Mars and Sag could do that. Yeah. All right, here, let's talk about some positive aspects of Sag. So, honest and generous. So, I think, is Mars and Sag making us more honest?
Okay, so here's my commentary on keywords. Okay, I think keywords are great as long as we recognize that they're branches and we recognize what the root is. Because I think people get stuck in keywords, and words can be twisted to mean similar things to other things. But if we go to the core, we understand why these words are used to describe Sagittarius. That's my sensitivity, because I just see people just talking, and they're using the right words, but they don't have the right energy because they're on the branches that sometimes work and sometimes they snap. But if you go to the root of what the energy is about, you're always going to be on to something. And quite spontaneously, the right branch, right, you'll always find yourself on a sturdy branch when you use the keywords.
Mm-hmm.
So to understand why do we associate these keywords with Sagittarius? What is about Sagittarius that when it goes well, it turns into honesty, and when it doesn't, it turns into belligerence? How do we understand that those on the spectrum of one energy? And to me,
Well,
that's
I
the
would
root.
say the root is this. It's a certain igniting of the physical form of mankind that creates certain behaviors, right?
Okay, so one of these behaviors, and what I mentioned before, right, we're stuck in this place, right? We get up and we move to a different place, and it broadens our world. There are things in this place that we didn't know existed in this place, right? And so men learn that if we use this, when this part of our body is activated and we listen, right, it expands our horizons. You know? Right, and
that's a good one, expanding horizons, because if your legs are lit up and you go walking through the wilderness, you will see something you've never seen before. I mean, I do think that yeah, like exposing new exposure to things could be a very beautiful thing of Mars and Sagittarius.
Yeah, and I think also part of faith that's built in is if we truly have faith in what is true here, right, should be true over there, it should be true over there, and should be true over there. And someone who is truly driven by this drive is going to be this part of their body activated to go figure out is what's true here, true over there, and true over there. And I think this is why Sagittarius rules journeys overseas, right? This ability to validate, this need to activate and validate our faith by having these different kinds of experiences that help us connect the dots.
It's interesting to think of the Gemini Sagittarius axis in the conversation on honesty too, because with Gemini, we're just searching for more. We're curious. We're gathering. We're everything. We're expanding, but in this kind of more scattered way. And I know that there's like that whole pop culture, oh, Geminis are liars, but it's like, well, is it, or is it more that they're able to hold multiple truths or multiple realities or multiple what ifs? Whereas Sagittarius, on the other hand, is like, okay, well, let's actually bridge these together and find what is reality. And I think that is what honesty really is with Sagittarius, or at least one side of it is finding how do all of these things exist together? How can we create a belief system or a philosophy around this that holds the truth, therefore is honest?
Yeah, and I think what's meant by honesty and what also leads to belligerence is that someone believes that they are right. So when there's people that if you put them in a lie detector, okay, pass, right, because they have so much belief, right, but it's obvious that they're a little bit delusional, right? This is part of it's like religious wars, right? This is Mars and Sagittarius energy. Right, is that I'm willing to fight for what I believe in. And a lot of these religious wars, different cultures, we had this part of the body was active. We had to get on the move with our spears.
That is such a good point. Sorry.
And the one thing about the symbolism of the opposition between Sagittarius and Gemini, and if you think about it, is the symbol for Gemini is duality, right? They picked this two, right? That's what duality means. So Gemini does mean duality, and I think it's different perspectives, right? If you look at things from different perspectives, you see things differently, right? And I think that where they come together is if you see enough of those perspectives, right, you can see where they all connect to one truth, right? And I think the signs don't really exist on their own. They have to always exist and complement as one side of the coin of the opposite. It's like Gemini is questions, right? And to have a question, you have to have this, right? And Sagittarius is answer. There's only one answer. And I think that be able to, and people that have planets in opposition there, like yourself, right? Having to balance that, right? Your whole life. I have Jupiter and Neptune opposing in Gemini and Sagittarius. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm going to be saying crazy shit all month.
You, Ricky. Okay. No, okay. So I want to say something about Mars and Sagittarius. I feel like it's going to be quite adventurous. Like, I mean, I know that's another keyword. I mean, maybe I don't know how to get around the keywords thing because I'm using adjectives to describe the energy, but I do think if there's that get up and go root in the body, that people are going to be more inclined to go on an adventure that they wanted to do. Like with Mars and Scorpio, like we're sitting at home being in a water sign, being all yin and like carried downward. The Greek word for there's onopheric and catapheric. Onopheric is things that are carried upwards, which is air and fire signs, and catapheric is carried downwards. So like water and earth signs are catapheric. So it's like when Mars and Scorpio, we might have been ruminating mad, but we're carried downwards about it. We're like sitting there ruminating. But with the Mars and Sagittarius, here we get this carried upward approach of like, oh man, let's go on that. Let's go to that McDonald's over there. Like whatever you want to do, like you're going to get up and go. And I also think one of the things that happens when we get energy going down the leg is we get the gas pedal of a car, like Sages in their freaking cars and their gas pedal because of that leg energy. So it's like they're going to get in and drive around, like driving motorcycles, driving cars, like, it's like road trips, day trips, like all those things. I do think there's an adventurous quality to the uplifted nature of Mars and Sagittarius.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going horseback riding this weekend.
Shut up!
I sure am.
With who?
With my wife. We're going to Costa Rica.
With your girlfriend?
We're going on a trip. Sag moved to my third house.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my.
Wow.
Are you excited?
So, yeah, this brings up one thing, okay? So, obviously, I was a professional football player, so I'm a Marsy type person, right? Whether I want to be or not, it's inside of me. Right? There are some people where Mars is not very prominent in their charts, and so I don't think this conversation really pertains to them as much, okay? And there's a caveat here, pertains to them as much unless they're going through heavy Mars progressions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of this idea of seasons is we all experience the seasons that we all experience together, but based on what is being activated in our charts, we're all going through our own internal seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And when those two seasons, the internal seasons and the external seasons interact, right, things tend to manifest in life. So again, to me, if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of Mars in your life, right, but your husband is a drunk Sagittarius, okay, maybe it's time to go visit your mom this month.
Oh my God. Yeah, let's talk about how to fight with a Sagittarian. Like,
you just agree with them.
You get divorced. That's what I did.
What?
You agree with them. You just say
take space, dude.
You just say you're right? And if they're not right, then you leave, right? Because there's nothing worse than a wrong Sagittarius, because Sagittarius does not ever believe they are wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
You feel like there's something hopeful about Sagittarius? Like I do think it with Mars and Sagittarius, it feels a little bit more hopeful than Mars and Scorpio, which is a little bit more resentful.
It can be, right? But I think it depends on the person. But yes, the nature of Mars in Sagittarius, it can be hopeful. If someone is clear about what they believe in, right? Because if you think you believe in something, but you don't have the energy to do anything about it, it's hard to be hopeful. But you believe in something and you feel this Mars energy and you have the energy to do something about it, it's easier to be hopeful. And I think when Mars is in Sagittarius and you don't feel like doing something, don't waste your energy being hopeful for it, right? And I think one of the ways to aim the energy is to look to where are the areas that I could use more hope? Where are areas that I could turn the hope up? Because when Mars is in Sagittarius, if we can tap into it, we have access to potentially more hope.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone who's watching, you should look at what house Sagittarius is on for you and know that through the middle of December, Mars is going to be going through that house. And that is really important. It's like we're going to have a certain Sag quality in that area of life, so if it's in your first house, you're a Sag rising, so you are going to be the adventurous one in the equation. If it's over in your seventh house of partners,
or irritated, because no, seriously, because if you think of adventure, right, I think of Mars times are times to clear out the pipe so the passion can flow. But how much old resentment, how much stuff is stuck in that pipe? And so I think especially in the beginning of a Mars time, it feels irritating because the passion is trying to move, but it's bumping into all this stuff. All right. And so to get to it, sometimes we have to handle the irritation well, because if we don't, we spend the rest of the energy cleaning up the mess instead of actually putting the energy towards something we're passionate about. Or healing, someone is not right. Mars is the planet of breaks, injuries, right? And so we're healing, and the Mars energy is going to healing. It's not going to actually we're overcoming our own self, but it's not going to building something and putting something into the world.
Is now the time to build, though, or should we be waiting for Capricorn?
Mars is a builder, so it's wherever Mars is, it's about what are you building, right? So that's what right. So this is building based on what you believe in, right? It's building faith, you could say, right? And building faith comes from taking your shot, because you learn what to have faith in and what not to have faith in.
But no, Jenna, I love your point. Is like maybe what you decide you have faith in during Mars and Sag, then you go about building in a more Capricorn sense when Mars goes into Capricorn.
It's interesting to frame Mars as a builder when, like, of course, Saturn's a builder too. And it's like, oh, the two malefics. Why is it malefic to build? Like, that feels a little...
Well, because no, it doesn't, right? To build requires effort. Malefic just means effort. It just all it means is effort. Right?
That is not all it means. That is not all it means.
It is all it means.
No, it's not. It also means maleficent, malevolent. It means mal.
But I'm saying that just means if you go down to the evolutionary root of things, right? Things that feel good, things that feel bad. Things that feel bad requires more effort to get over it to accomplish something. Things that feel good, it requires less effort to move in that direction. So at the core of good and evil, it really is easy and difficult. And I think that reframe is really powerful, because you see people that have a lot of grit, they don't complain, and they're happy and successful.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the show where Ricky thinks he's right about everything, and that's why it's called the Ricky Williams Show.
I like it. Now I feel like I can just be like, oh, then what is this? Then what is this? Because like now I'm thinking, for me, Mars transiting Mars is on my Saturn, and I'm like, okay, so the two malefics, the two efforts together, and why would that be necessarily a better situation? It's going to be briefer than Saturn on top of my Mars. Like, that will be more sustained and endurance building of that, or endurance led building. However, Mars is more like, okay, just take the action. Maybe you don't need as long of a transit because Mars is so ready to go.
Yeah, that works. Perfect. Well, the nature of Mars and Saturn, and I like to talk to them because those are the two planets of grit. And if you think of what it takes to overcome something, right, you got to stick with it. But you also have to have the ability to bounce back, right? And if you don't have passion for something and you find obstacles, you're gonna quit, right? You're gonna quit. And I think of Saturn. I call Saturn the safety urge, because if you think, and at the core for me, it evolves into something more. But at the core, it's the safety urge. So it's all of those things that we do because if we're afraid if we don't, something bad is gonna happen. Okay, That's right. And without that motivation, none of us would have survived through evolution. Right. This is another way of thinking about Saturn as the planet of maturity. Right. It means that I'm not ready for this yet.
So
I'm not ready for this yet.
Jenna,
and so when Mars hits Saturn, it's kind of bringing up the things. What have I judged that I'm not ready for? So it's the courage to take that next step of maturity. Right. And I think of when Saturn is hitting Mars, it's more of how do I focus my energy? How do I focus my energy?
So Jenna, I want to have you back on the Ricky Williams Show to ask Ricky random questions. Would you? Heck
yes. Would you? I'd love that.
Okay, because you're really good at coming up with weird topics, and I think it would be a really interesting show where you just like ping him with like the weirdest questions ever.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Ricky, the crowd is talking to you. They're saying that you had an interesting reframe, and they're delighted about the name, the Ricky Williams Show. So I just want to acknowledge that. Now, hey, Ricky, we have 2 minutes, and I think what we should start doing is to make sure that you tell people how to find your school, because we got to make sure this hour is worth your time. So we got to make sure that people know where they can find you. How do people go to your school?
I have no idea.
Are you full? Is your school full?
No, we're always taking. I mean, it's a school, but it's more of like a group. We just meet, and yeah, we have like chart. We look at chart reading, and then we have transits and progressions, and we do fundamentals, and we do synastry. But to me, it's really about gaining astrological literacy. And we learned English by being around our parents and other adults, listening to them speak. And I think the best way to really learn astrology is just to have conversations. And I think a lot of times people don't have access to that. And I'm Virgo rising, so I'm very technical. And whatever I say about astrology, I always have my cursor and I'm circling things. So if someone really, and I call it astrologic. So if someone really wants to understand the logic of astrology, and it's not the symbols, but it's basically how to think astrologically, that's what we do.
It's online, right? Someone's asking if it's in person. It's online, right?
Yeah, it's on Zoom. Mm-hmm.
Do they go find you through the Ricky Williams your website?
Maybe.
Okay, Ricky Williams.
I'll find out. I'll find out.
His wife runs the thing. That's what's really good.
My wife doesn't. My assistant Linda does, but I'll find out.
Okay. Well, we just want to make sure because I think a lot of people are falling in love with you through hearing you every week, and I think that they might want a little bit more of you in the monitor. So we just got to make sure that they can find you.
Yeah, my thing is people fall in love with me because my aim is to help people fall in love with themselves.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. Well, luckily I couldn't love myself any more than I do. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
that's how we get along.
Veneers. Yeah. All right, Ricky. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Andrea.
All right, we'll have you back, Jenna. Get your questions ready.
I'm on it.
All right, thank you to everyone in the chat for participating. We will see you next week on this show. All right.
All right.
Bye.